Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look at the market for the week ending April 5th, 2019. Let me remind you that according to the disclaimer, I'm not a professional investment advisor, so if you need that kind of advice, you should seek one out, one who is so qualified. I'm a psychologist and I do this mostly for my own purposes to give me some idea of what I might expect in the coming week or weeks in the market. And it's posted as a YouTube video. Anyone can take a look, but it's by no means an attempt to give investment advice. I couldn't possibly do that. I don't know what your financial status is, etc. Before we begin then, let me close this. So as we usually do, let's take a look at the general market and then we'll take a look at some individual stocks. I use the S&P 500 because it's 500 stocks as opposed to the Dow, which is just 30 stocks. They're pretty much running in tandem with each other anyway. So on the weekly chart here of the S&P 500, a couple of things that I would take a look at. First of all, the 4 EMA crossed above the 9 back here. We had a trend beginning before that. We had an uptrend here. And since then, we've been in this nice move up. Now, the 4 is still above the 9 exponential moving average, that red line. And the 9 is above the 30 weighted moving average. It's this green line that is now running right on top of the 50-day moving average, exponential moving average. So those four averages are above each other. And, to me, it indicates an uptrend is well in place. We've passed this resistance level at approximately 28.15 now. We're closing at 28.92. You might recall that it wasn't too long ago, just a few weeks ago, we were bumping up here against that 2800 on the S&P 500. Now we are above that. So the trend is nicely up. Recently, I read an article in the April issue of Stocks and Commodities. The author uses a parabolic that seems to be more reactive. These are the parameters 0.07 and 0.20. If you want to set them, it's the AF increase and the AF max levels. So if you want to try that, it seems to be more sensitive and keeps you in the trend, whether it's up or down. What else do we have? Well, here's the 200-day moving average right here. We're way above that. And we have some room at the top. The upper Bollinger Band is at about 3,000. When we get to the daily chart, we'll show you how we got the target of 3254 from this chart, because I believe that on the daily chart in particular, we can make a case for a reverse or inverse head and shoulder pattern. A head, shoulder, shoulder. It's more pronounced on the daily chart. In any case, go down to the MACD histogram and you can see that MACD is well above the zero line. So that's in bullish territory. The Williams percentile, which I have a lot of confidence in, crossed above the zero line here. The 50% line here. It's really minus 50. And it's remained there ever since. So, and then now we have the sum of the rate of change indicator trending up nicely above the 4% line. RSI 12 on the weekly chart is a very powerful trend indicator, and it crossed here, and it's still there. It crossed over on January 11th or 12th, and it's still above the 40% line. So we have a nice uptrend on the weekly chart. Let's take a look at the daily chart. On daily chart, I was talking about a possible reverse or inverse head and shoulder pattern. I would call this the head. This would be a shoulder, and over here, the shoulder. And I calculated a target of 3254 from this head and shoulder pattern. You take the distance from the neckline to the top of the head here, or this low here, and you add it on to the recent break of the neckline. As so far as the other indicators are concerned on the daily chart, you can see that Williams percent R above that minus 50 line. I'll come back to MACD in a minute. The sum of the rate of change indicator above 4% and RSI 12 above 60. Now, MACD gives us a slightly different tune. It raises a little bit of a caution flag here because you can see that as the S&P made a high, MACD made this new high. Alex would say that the back of the bulls were broken here, backs of the bulls were broken here, and now that the stocks are making a new high, S&P making a new high, MACD is struggling to make as high a high as it did here. So this is a possible bearish divergence of MACD, and we can't fall asleep on it. We need to keep the eyes open about that. It's quite possible we get a little pullback, you see. And we'll take a quick look at some of the stockcharts.com's charts, as we often do. And this first one here is the new high, new low index. And you can see that since we had this major pullback in December and then rallied all the way up here, we're still making a lot more new highs than new lows. So let's take a look at another chart. Here's the chart showing the impulse indicator. The bars painted red, green, or blue. It's a censoring system. Right here we have the weekly chart, and you can see that it's painted green now. Was last week as well. And these moving averages are crossing above each other. They're 9 across the 30. So we are now showing a green bar, which means that we are allowed to go. We're not allowed to go short. We can only go long or hold. So that's something interesting to remember. Here is the McClellan oscillator, and you could see it trended all the way down. When the market broke down, it came all the way down and then trended back up, and it's been fluctuating a bit, but right now it's on its way up again. So the oscillator is in positive territory. It's above the 50 and the 200-day moving averages right here. And here's that chart showing the percentage, a weekly chart showing the percentage of stocks of the S&P 100 above their 200-day moving average. So no need to belabor the point. We have a nice bull market going on here. So here are two charts that I've shown you before from Barron's this weekend. And what I wanted to point out is that the transports are once again confirming the new highs of the Dow Industrials. And that's, according to Dow theory, that's pretty bullish. You can notice that utilities are pulling back a bit here, it seems. And on the second chart, they plot the put-call ratio versus the S&P 100. It's in that sweet spot here, a bullish area, okay? I won't worry to go into details, but it's at 60 on the put-call ratio and just about 125, 135 on this here, on the S&P 100. So we took a look at the general market. It seems that we were in a very nice bullish uptrend. And now we want to look at some individual stocks. I use the Sheikh Analytics software. They said I could do so. And so I look at a couple of lists that I have here. This first list is a list that I own most of these, not all of them. I'll point out the ones that I own. Some of them, a few of them, 4 of them are bullish or very bullish. Many of them are neutral. And none of them are really bearish. I wouldn't own it if it's bearish. So let's start off with the first one here, which is, let's see, Allergen Technology, Electronics, and I still own it. You can see that it's just above that 21-day moving average, and the money flow is not impressive here. It was better here, but it's still in positive territory. It was somewhat oversold. Now it's ticking up a little bit, and the relative strength is very good, and it's rated very bullish. So I still own this, and this is one I don't own, but it was cited as a stock of the day or week by Shaken, and it's been up since then. CBRE, it's in real estate, and you could see they cited it somewhere back here, so it trended up since then. Money flow is just above the zero line, positive, and it was oversold. Now it's becoming a little more overbought. But the other indicators are looking very good, very bullish. CDNS, which is Cadence, I do have this one. I still own it. It's had a nice run up here, and so it's riding this upper line of the channel. It's still showing nice money flow. It became a little bit overbought recently, but the relative strength is so strong, and it's also very bullish. I bought iPay not too long ago because I was looking for an ETF of payment systems, and it seemed to be performing quite well. In fact, it's making new highs, it seems. New highs compared to the high back in December, in October, and that's encouraging to me anyway. So I still own it. Adobe, we'll see how that one looks. It was down a little bit, about a $0.50 on Friday. It's a neutral one. It's not bullish, but it's neutral. But I like the money flow. It's somewhat overbought here now, but the relative strength is good, and it's neutral. Salesforce CRM, we can see that it's now just at that long-term moving average and the 21-day average. Money flow became a little more positive here, and it's now oversold. I get confused a little sometimes with oversold and overbought. So when you're listening to the video, sometimes you'll catch me being wrong. Relative strength is pretty good, and it's now neutral, but I still own that. These are some of the other ones I own. I'll try to go through them pretty quickly here because I want to show you another list. And so you can see what this one looks like. It's at that long-term average. It's in neutral. And Google I own again. I still own it. And we'll see that Google has got very good money flow. It's not as good as it was here, but it's oversold now. And I still own it. KUIS, or this Keysight Technology Electronics. It became a little more oversold now, overbought rather. See, get confused, right? The money flow is still positive, but less than it was here. So it's sort of like some profit taking as it consolidates here. But the relative strength is still good. It's neutral. Microsoft, well, it's still doing very well. It's now oversold, and the money flow is pretty good. So I like that one. And PayPal, as you know, I like very much. It's one of the payment systems that I like. And that one is also looking very good. Relative strength, money flow, that's looking pretty good. Visa, it's become more bullish recently, and the money flow has increased a bit, and the other indicators are looking good. Now, Etsy made a nice move after earnings, but pulled back to the 21-day average, and now it seems to be setting up. It became oversold, setting up for another move perhaps. And lastly, we have Dell. Money flow has increased again. I like that. And it's moving away from its 21-day average, so I like that a lot. And here's a list of stocks that I use with the typical screen, one of the typical screens from Shaken, and you can take a look. You can see these names. We looked at some of these already. We don't have much time left, so I won't be able to take a look at every one of them. But I hope you had a good weekend. Enjoy the basketball, the March Madness. I really enjoy the colleges, and we'll try and do this again next week.